Hello sports fans, and welcome back to another week of the Pioneers Weekly Football Preview, where we take a look at games from the high school, college, and professional ranks. Looking at our prep coverage for this week, one of the highlighted games of the week for us is Chippewa Hills traveling to Lakeview. Both teams are coming to this game with identical 2-1 records. Chippewa Hills looking to score on a Lakeview team that's been pretty stingy defensively all season. The question is, Bob, how does Chippewa Hills break down that Lakeview defense, and are they going to have to do that by running the football like they did last week?
They are going to have to be able to run and throw the football. Larry Jones will insist on it. He doesn't like to be one-dimensional. And the way that the Warriors win this game is they got to be physical up front. They got to kind of man up and be more physical than the Lakeview defense. And if they do that, they will win. I think they will do this, and I think they are going to put some points on the board. I look at a 24-12 kind of game.
Brendan, looking at this matchup, Chippewa Hills, what do they do to attack this Lakeview defense? They've obviously shown that they can throw the ball, but what do they have to do to be successful this week and put some points on the board?
I think they first have to realize that they've got to be able to attack up the middle and outside. They've got to be able to pass the ball. They've got to be able to connect to their big stars. It's going to be a hard game against Lakeview, especially they played Newaygo really well and only lost by a couple points. So it's going to be a tough game for the Warriors. I do see them coming out ahead, but I see it 14-8. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a hard-fought game. It's going to be good football.
Yeah, I think this is actually weather's actually going to play a pretty big factor in this, again, like it might have last week. Both teams, I would expect a low-scoring affair in this one. I see Chippewa Hills coming out by about 10 points in this one. Looking at our other high school game highlighted of the week, we've got two 3-0 teams in a CSA showdown. Reed City coming off a big win over Holton last week, where they finally seemed to get their offense clicking against a Newaygo team new to the CSAA this year, and has started 3-0 with some big wins, including a 1-point win over Lakeview last week. Bob, looking at this matchup, what does Reed City have to do to stay perfect on the year, and does that help Newaygo, being that this is their first year in the CSAA and kind of being an unknown to the rest of the teams on the schedule?
I absolutely think Newaygo does have an advantage coming into the league and being in their first year. You can watch all the film you want, but film really doesn't tell you how fast guys are, how big guys are, and you have to actually see it up close, up and personal to get an understanding of that. And I think Newaygo's taking advantage of that. On the flip side, what Reed City has to do is continue to do what they've been doing, run the football, execute, and if they do that, they will win. I think they win this one. I think home field advantage plays a big part. And they're going to win a nice tight game, 16-12, something like that.
Brandon, looking at the Reed City offense, which was kind of a question mark through the first couple games, they put up 60 points last week against Holton. Do you think that gives this team enough confidence that they can score on a Newaygo defense that has proven up to the task all season so far?
I think once they get in rhythm, once they start getting some long drives down pat, they'll be all right. It's just going to be a battle to get them sustained drives, getting 3 or 4 yards every carry, and just to make sure that they pound the ball. Newaygo's going to come at them, and it's going to be a tough game, but I think Reed City's going to pull it out by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest factors for this game and early in the season for Reed City has been turnovers. They need to cut down on the mistakes that they've hurt them in the first couple games of the year. They got over it last week. They don't have as much of a margin of error against a Newaygo team this week. I think that they keep the turnovers down and they're going to win by a couple scores. Looking at the college ranks now, Ferris State hosts its home opener on Saturday against Ashland, the number 22 ranked team in the country. The Eagles and Bulldogs both come into this game with identical 2-0 records. Ferris State, 4 yards away from setting a school record for total offense last week against Lake Erie. Bob, this is really their first challenge of the year, the first time that you actually see them get tested by a LEAC opponent who's supposed to be toward the top of the league. What does Ferris State have to prove this week, and do you think that they have what it takes to get it done?
I think the Bulldogs have a lot to prove in this contest because They played St. Francis, who's an NAIA school. Lake Erie is on in the South Division. It's not very good. And so there's some people out there that are trying to figure out how good they are. They don't want to get too optimistic on the Bulldogs. So Ferris has got to come out and prove that they can play with the big boys, and Ashland is one of them. I think Ferris will lose this game, but only because Ashland, I think, has got a little more depth, a little more experience in the big games, and it should be a fun game to watch, though.
Brandon, can you talk a little bit about what Ferris State has to do to keep things rolling offensively? They've shown a little bit more balance last week after running the ball effectively in the first game of the season. And who do you see coming out on top this week?
I think a balanced approach is the best method, especially when you're going up against somebody who's ranked higher, who's supposedly better. Coach Anise and the staff are going to have the guys prepared, and it's going to be a long fought battle for Ferris. But after 600 yards of offense, I wouldn't see it let down. I think they have some momentum going, and I think they're going to pull out a squeaker this week and go 3-0.
Yeah, this is an exciting game for Ferris, both because it's a home opener and this is the first chance for a lot of people to actually see this new offense under first-year coach Tony Anise. This is a first impression. They'll have a chance to play under the lights in front of a lot of fans who are anticipating an improved product this year. I think Ferris State uses that momentum and uses their offense to win by a touchdown against a tough Ashland team this week. Looking at the college ranks, a big game in East Lansing on Saturday night. Notre Dame comes to town. When these two teams meet, it's always a very exciting finish, as evidenced from the last few years of this rivalry. Looking at the game this year, Bob, looking at it on paper, you would think Michigan State has a bit of an advantage. It's a little bit more balanced at this point. Are they the favorite, and who do you see coming out on top on Saturday?
I see Michigan State as the favorite, but if they want to keep their perfect record going, they have to be able to throw the football. Right now, they're effectively running the ball, but Maxwell has got to get on track. If they don't, Notre Dame is going to take advantage of that and could pull off an upset. But I think Michigan State pulls this out. It's at home. You're going to have the big crowd on their side, and as the last few years have been, it's going to be right down to the end. Maybe a fake field goal again, or something like that. But a big play at the end will determine the winner.
Brandon, looking at this game in past years and how it's kind of shaped the season to come, how important is this game for Michigan State and staying undefeated and keeping that momentum going? And who do you have winning on Saturday?
This could be a real test for Michigan State. They are coming off a very big win, very lopsided win against Central Michigan, and coming home and facing a good team like Notre Dame, or any time you face Notre Dame, it's going to be a challenge. As for Michigan State, they're going to need to pass the ball, like Bob said, and hopefully it'll propel them to a victory as they begin Big Ten play.
Yeah, I think that Michigan State is going to have to throw the football against an unproven Notre Dame secondary. The Notre Dame front seven is probably one of the best that Michigan State is going to face this year. I think the winner of this game is whoever has the ball last, and I'm saying that's going to be Michigan State this week. Looking at our final game on the slate for this week, the Detroit Lions, fresh off a dramatic come-from-behind win in Week 1 over St. Louis, hits the road. They're going to take on San Francisco this week, who took care of Green Bay in Week 1. After 1 week, Bob, looking at this Lions team, do they have what it takes to hang with the San Francisco team that I think a lot of people are starting to look at as an early favorite to win in the NFC this year?
I think this game is one of those measuring stick kind of games, because after the 49ers beat the Packers, everyone kind of put San Francisco in that Super Bowl talk. Detroit gets to figure out how they measure up with them. Can they play with them? San Francisco is more diversified offensively. They bring everything defensively. It's going to be a true test for the Lions. I think San Francisco wins this game, probably by about 10, like a 31-21 kind of game. But if the Lions want to win this game, they've got to be able to run the football, and that's going to be their true test all year.
Brandon, this gets talked about a lot in the media, maybe not as much among coaching staff, but how important is this game for Jim Schwartz as a coach, coming off of the incident last year with Jim Harbaugh? And do you see that the Lions using that as motivation this week And who do you have winning against in this matchup?
Handshakes aside, I think it is a measuring stick for Coach Schwartz. He's going up against a better team. There's no doubt about it. You got a better secondary, you got a better running game than the Lions. It's going to come down to whether or not Matthew Stafford and the offensive weapons like Kevin Jones and Calvin Johnson can continue to keep up with the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think they will. I think it's going to be ugly, and I think we're going to see a measuring stick of an old Lions team.
Yeah, I think the key for the Lions is how this offensive line is going to hold up against a San Francisco defensive line that looked flat out scary last week against a pretty good Green Bay team. So I think they win it. If they win it, it's going to have to be up front. I'll say San Francisco wins this game, but probably by a touchdown or even less. All right, now looking at our final portion of the show for this week. Each of us will go through and give us our game ball, which is given out each week to an outstanding player or players from last week's performances. We'll start with Bob Allen.
My game ball goes out to John Spicer of Big Rapids. First 2 weeks, he did not carry the ball once. And in week 3 against Central Montcalm, he got the call twice. Went 59 yards on the first carry for a touchdown. Second time, he carried it 58 yards for a touchdown. He ended up with 3 carries, 117 yards, and was a big part of the Cardinals' victory last week.
Brandon, can you tell us who your standout performer for last week?
My game ball this week goes to TJ Jones up in Reed City. 2 touchdowns, more than 140 yards on the ground, and an impressive win over Holton.
All right, for my game ball, I'm going to go with Jason Peacock from Chippewa Hills. In getting the Chippewa Hills ground game going last week in a 41 win over White Cloud. Peacock fell just short of the 100-yard plateau, but helped establish the ground game there in a big win for the Warriors. For all of our picks from this week's Pioneer Weekly Football Preview, make sure to check out Friday's edition of the Pioneer or visit BigRapidsNews.com. And make sure to check out the weekend edition of the Pioneer for coverage from all of your local high school football games.